you see who was beating you?
The guy in the white shirt, I found out was the lieutenant at the time, Officer Jason Bagshaw. Mm-hmm.
After he beat you with a baton, he punched you in the face.
Yeah, I haven't watched the other videos. I can't anymore, so.
Is it too painful? Too difficult to relive it?
Oh, yeah.
Moment by moment?
Yeah, I get in a very bad place.
When I learned and saw the scale of the lie and the injustices of January 6th, it burned a hole through my entire being, right? I cannot bear injustice. That's why I cannot bear living with the lies that we have had to live with. And when you find out that there are people who were killed on January 6th, like Roseanne Boyland, when you find out that Officer Sicknick, you were fed that he was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher, and that was another lie. When you see people using terms like insurrection, and you've watched them get away with insurrection and seditious conspiracy for years, Russia collusion almost killed me. Because on a daily basis, the number of lies was just, it was almost more than I could bear, because I have this strong sense of right and wrong and what is true and what is not true. And to see people like, for example, Michael Flynn, the things that they said about Michael Flynn that were just absolute, nonsense, reported by people who, claim to be the intelligence correspondent or the defense correspondent, and you don't even know what you're talking about. And then to see CBS go out there and repeat the same BS. So, I would just tell you that any good journalist can do this. Any good journalist can be at the center of the big story at the right moment. If you do what you do for the right reasons and you do it well and you do it, it's hard work to do it right, but it's worth it. Well, this is the story of a woman whose name is Victoria Charity White. And one of the things that I mentioned in the lead-in is that the January 6th committee, guess how many times they mentioned her name, Steve, in all those hours and hours and hours of so-called investigation? Not once. So, and any police officer out there, knows that every deadly, use of deadly force incident has to be investigated. So, these are the kind of incidents that should have been right at the top of the investigative tree. So every single person on that committee, everyone who was related to that committee, everybody who assisted that committee, the so-called experts that they brought in, shame on all of them. Shame on the police officers who witnessed this and have said and done nothing about it. Because how Victoria Charity White did not die is still a complete mystery to me. We were able, by going through the footage, sort of second by second, frame by frame, we paired different body cameras from different police officers. We worked with, a lot of different people like Gary McBride from M5 News, who has spent years studying this footage, David Summerall, from StopHate.com. We consulted with many different people within the community, but we also, of course, went to the MPD, we went to the FBI, we went to the U.S. Attorney's Office. None of them will ever help you or work with you on this. But what you have in front of you, and if you watch the piece, you'll see this, we rely very heavily on the evidence, okay? And you see Victoria Charity White having the holy living hell beaten out of her by not one police officer, Lieutenant Jason Bagshaw at the time, now commander, but also by Officer Neil McAllister. We identified another officer that was stabbing her in the back with her baton at the same time, and that we believe is Officer Sarah Beaver. And then there's another officer that we were not able to identify. We cross-referenced court documents. It's especially helpful when the Department of Justice identifies people, or the FBI itself, because the government can't come after you for their own work, right? And that helped us when we matched it with body cams and positions and security camera footage. It helped show us who exactly was responsible. How Victoria White survived that beating is really unknown. I have actually felt one of these batons. It's a metal baton, and it is so heavy. It is weighted exceptionally to really to act as a deterrent, not to be used as a weapon the way it was against an unarmed, defenseless woman. And I will have to say a special mention for FBI Special Agent Tricia Whitehill, because this woman is from the Minnesota office. We contacted her. She was very nice. She was trying to work with us, but she wasn't given permission to talk to us. But this is a woman who actually watched the videos, knew what had happened, mentioned that Victoria White tried to stop people from breaking windows. By the way, this brave woman actually tackled people, two individuals that were breaking windows, and stopped them doing that. And what does this FBI agent do? She lies. I mean, that's really what she did in her statement of facts, because she talks about Victoria White grabbing the leg of an officer on the ledge. Well, we went to the video at that exact time that she put in her statement. And what is Victoria White doing? She's fighting for her life as she's being assaulted by 4 police officers at the same time. And she's trapped in this crowd. And then she says, as the video progresses, Victoria White has penetrated the phalanx of officers and she's beating them, and they're having to fend her off with a baton. That's what she says. Fend her off with a baton. I mean, they're cracking this woman's skull. And you can actually hear, when you listen to the video as we did, you can hear when it shifts from where it's hitting something else to where it's sinking into the flesh and bone of her skull. And I will say, Steve, based on our investigations, we believe that the police officers from Capitol Police and MPD and others were set up that day as much as the protesters, right? I mean, they were not properly prepared. They were not well equipped. They were abandoned by their leadership. This goes all the way to the top of the Capitol Police and a woman called Yogananda Pittman. You can look up Tariq Johnson, the Capitol Police whistleblower, who's written a lot about this. You can follow the work of Loudermilk's committee, and you will see this is a typical strategy for information warfare, right? They blind people with the intelligence, which means they don't let, like Stephen Sun, the head of Capitol Police, they don't let him hear all the intelligence. Why you needed to hear all the intelligence from that office, I don't know. You just had to open your eyes and ears in one sense. But what they do is they make sure that you set the conditions for chaos by making sure the police are under-equipped and under-resourced. There's no direction. Nothing is being done the way it's supposed to be done. And they know that within that, you're going to get the worst of the worst rising. And that's what happened in that tunnel with Victoria White. The worst of the worst was carried out against her. It was a crime against her. And I have to point out that in that same tunnel, not long afterwards, within an hour or two, Roseanne Boyland was beaten by another police officer, Lila Morris, and she died. She was officially declared dead that evening at the hospital, but she was pretty much dead when the protesters were trying to work on her and save her life, and when they finally got police to take her back into the tunnel. So you have, one woman, Victoria White, who should have died, and you have another woman, Roseanne Boyland, who actually did die, and yet you have a president who's going out there pushing this fake, what he's doing is not just pushing a lie, he's projecting onto the American people. He's covering up for a stolen election, and he is trying to give a justification for an FBI and a Department of Justice who are still arresting American citizens today for their political beliefs. And let's not forget what Representative Clay Higgins, the news that he broke in the interview he did with me a few weeks ago. You've got teams of 3 air marshals that are tracing American citizens who have never been charged with a crime, never accused of a crime, and they're just literally being persecuted for their political beliefs. And when you see that 3 air marshals are following 1 American citizen, you need to know that they have a commanding officer. They have someone that they're reporting to. They have an ops center that's available. There's not just 1 team. If you're going to do that kind of work, you have to have multiple teams on standby. I mean, this is how many, I would say, billions of dollars have these lies cost the American people. Investigating a Russia collusion, which was never properly investigated because we know that it was a political operation by Hillary Clinton and the DNC and her allies, Perkins Coie and all these other nasty, nasty people, right? And not only that, but January 6th and all the other things that have happened in between. We are really being taken for a ride as American citizens, and we are responsible for continuing to allow them to slit our throats. We're paying for that with our own tax dollars. I don't understand it.